Hello, welcome to another week at the bungalow. Got some first fix electrics for you this week. We're doing the downstairs ring main. So as always, starts with a bit of drilling. So we've got holes going through all of the ceiling joists, floor joists, whichever you want to call them. We're drilling 32mm holes through, hopefully to get the vast majority of the cabling along the ceiling. We've got the consumer unit going into the front room, which is as where all the cables will be heading just over my head there. So we've got a lot of cables coming this way. Everything's going to be sort of heading across the house and along. Once again, just like the pipe work, the holes that are drilled through the joists have to be between 750 and 1200 and can be a maximum of 50mm. So to make life a bit easier, just making up a simple stand to put the cabling in. I'm sure you can buy a posh version of these, but for our needs this will do nicely. A couple of bits of old leftover timber and a piece of copper pipe to hold the cables. Got Bolo with me again today. He's keeping an eye, making sure everything's been swept up. Obviously looking for something to eat. There we go. Just so we can pull the cable off without getting too tangled. I suspect some of you have noticed the obvious mistake in the fact that it needs feet, and when you see it again a bit later on in other videos, you'll notice that I put some feet on it because I kept pulling it over. So as much as possible, clipping the cables to the joists. Don't necessarily have to, as far as I'm aware, but it just makes life easier for putting the insulation in. We're going to insulate between the floors, mainly for sound, so it needs to be pretty consistent across so we fill all the gaps. Reason for the sound insulation is we're going to have wooden floors upstairs and we don't want too much of the transfer of footsteps across. So pretty standard. We're doing a ring main. Downstairs is split into two. Got a ring main for most of the downstairs, and then the kitchen's got its own ring main. So it's a matter of tracing the cables or following the cables between each socket, running them up the wall and then through the joists. We're going back along each joist to the holes that have been drilled, so we're not drilling too many holes through the joists. Not so concerned about the noggins, obviously non-supporting, so to speak, but the joists do need to be a bit more specific as to where we're drilling holes. So we've got all sorts of different methods of getting the cable down as the drops. So here we're on the block work, so pretty much the cable's running surface, and then we've got some white trunking that goes over the top, and this will get plastered in. So just pulling the cables down and measuring them to length, and then we use the white trunking which slots over the top to hold them in place, and then we've just got galvanised nails into the block work to hold the trunking in place, waiting for the plasterer to come along and plaster over and hide all of it. So it can take a bit of fettling to get the cables nice and flat. Another reason for using the reel, pulls the cable off the drum flat, means that they sit a bit happier for whether you're cable clipping or putting in this trunking. Just makes life a little bit easier. In the middle of all the radiators that have already been ordered. And then here in the bedroom, cables coming along and getting tacked to the old cinder block walls, and these are absolutely dreadful for fixing too. The cable clips keep dropping out. The block work is a lot nicer, the lightweight Celcons. But once again, in this room we can also use the trunking over the top, so it keeps the tables nice and neat. So here we've got a small amount of remedial work. So these are the 15mm pipes that run to the lounge radiator. And when we drilled the holes initially, we did them pretty much tight at 15mm. Well, since a small amount of investigation on the internet, it seems that we're likely, if we leave it at 15mm, we're likely to get some sort of squeaking and noise or clicking as the pipes expand in the timber, or the timber sort of gets warm. So just to try and stop that problem, we've drilled them out a bit bigger so that they, there's a bit of space for the pipes to expand without causing any problems. So still learning all the time, even though trying to investigating and researching all these different things. As you move from one trade to the next, it's quite a minefield trying to get it right so that the work that we do is correct. So roughing out the cable, ready for cutting off the drum, then threading it through and clipping it down in place. So on the concrete or the brickwork walls here of the old house, or the old part of the house, so we've had to chase out, as you saw in previous videos, chase out the walls so that we can get the cables in, and they're going to get buried because these walls will only get skimmed. So as Claire's clipping it in place, I'm starting another cable run to try and join up between the two. Like I say, we're heading back towards the holes that have already been drilled, so we're drilling as fewer holes as possible in all the joists. So it does mean a little bit more electrical cable, but we're sort of saving the strength of the beams. And discussion required as the plans progress. Socket into a cupboard, running it down into the false wall, hiding the cable, keeping things as neat as possible. And as you can tell from the kitchen area, there's a lot of drops, a lot of cables. Isolating switches for fridges and ovens and hobs. So back upstairs now. What with work and family, we're sort of doing the project as a part-time thing at the moment and trying to fit in where we can. So I'm here doing a bit of cabling midweek. So I'm moving the installation out of the way so that Claire can come in and do some more installation in the second bedroom or the first bedroom. Exactly the same as you saw us do on this one. So the extra pieces of timber needed to be put in, and to do that I needed to clear the insulation that we moved into the other bedroom into this bedroom so I can actually get to it. So I'm just finishing off taping over all the screw holes, finishing off putting the 25mm on top, and then shifting over the leftover insulation, which will be used to cover all the walls at a later date. So unfortunately this is part of it. We're not really doing anything as far as the actual product's concerned, but it's just managing materials. So on the one hand we want to try and get them into the building so we've got them so we can use them, but you also don't want too much so it just gets in your way. Another one of the issues. So here we got the 40 sheets of 25mm. This is going over the top of the rest of the insulation. Nice and light, easy to move, just bulky and awkward. And then there's a couple of sheets of 100mm. This is to finish off the bathroom. Job's a good one. So here we got the extra battens going onto the ceiling, just to give us that extra head height and stop the lump in the of the steel. So drilling and putting the screws in, so I can just push them up and screw them into place. A lot easier to do down on the ground than try and do it up in the air. And prepping the screws as well. Just that pesky light fitting to move. And then all done. Waiting for Claire to come in, get the insulation done. So back downstairs, cable run here in the lounge room, just off the family room. Like I say, drilling through the noggins here. Get the cable through, doing as small a hole as possible, so I think we're down at something like 15mm just to get a couple of cables through. There's not too much, and then running it back and clipping it in place. Here we've done the chasing out, so exactly the same. We clip the cable into the chase, and then this will get skimmed over or plastered over just to hide and tie everything together, so the block work and the brickwork and the falling off plaster all gets tied in. So I've had to notch out a little bit of the ceiling joist there to get the cables round. I mean, we could have buried it in the insulation, but it just makes putting the insulation and the plasterboard up a little bit easier. And the cables drop into the chase quite nicely, and they clip in place because it's block work, and so the nails hold, and it's lovely. Don't mind doing that one at all. Chase there for the wall tie, holding the wall plate down, and once again that'll get plastered in. So we're up and over, across the top of the ceiling, and we drop back down into the next socket. As far as the downstairs socket ring main's concerned, so ring main in as much as goes all the way around, each socket joins up and then goes back to the consumer unit again, so just a big circle like a daisy chain. As always a bit of cleaning up to do as far as the chases are concerned. I think you got them as well as possible, but always need a little bit of nibbling out just to make sure they're nice and flush, and then the cable gets tacked into place. Second run up goes next to it, and they just about fit in the chase nicely. Keeps the cables nice and neat, and even though the two sockets are right next to each other, you can't run horizontally, you have to run vertically back up to the ceiling then back down again, so keep the cables in the same place so they're not just all over the walls and people have a rough idea of where they are when you're trying to detect them. Some more pulling cable. This is the laborious bit, dragging it across the ceiling from one point to the next. And then one final bit for the week. So I popped in basically so we could decide where we were putting ceiling spotlights. Claire had done some investigation as to how many you should have per square metre in different rooms, and trying to get the spacing right as far as above the surfaces. So meant marking out, as we are here, the kitchen units around the kitchen area. We also marking the island and the table, so we know where the sort of furniture's going, or the fixed items, and then we can plan the lighting around it. So there you can see where the island's going in the middle of the kitchen. So we've got a separate lighting above that, lighting above the table, and then spots surrounding it. So as I leave you with us measuring up, I thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.